Welcome everyone to Berlin, Germany, host of the LEC Spring Playoffs. Today's series comes with massive stakes, and G2 Esports and Mad Lions fight for a direct spot in the final. The reigning champions got a scare in the last round, and the young Mad Lions have a history of causing trouble for G2. So we'll see if they can make it to their very first LEC final. I'm Sjokz, joined by the duo in the jungle, Caedrel and Zanzarah. Seems we've got an upgrade for Ender.
Yeah, Ender, we had to sub him out. I'm coming in. Now we've got a better jungle lineup. Yeah, sucks for Ender.
Yeah.
Love you, Ender.
Yeah, are you happy with Caedrel, Zanzarah?
Yeah, happy with Caedrel. He's kind of in the same place as me. He never been in the LEC playoffs, so...
Okay. Okay, at least you still have a chance to make it. I don't. I'm washed up now.
Well, you're both here now, so that's good news. And yesterday we started round 2 in a surprising fashion. Schalke 04 destroyed Fnatic in a 3-0 sweep. Zanzarah, now that you've had a night to sleep on it, what's your verdict on that series?
I think Schalke played really good. I think from round 1 we saw it versus G2. They overall stepped up super hard on this playoff, and I think we can call it now miracle round for sure. But there is a part what Fnatic didn't really play very well. You can call it actually a bad day because Schalke was a step ahead in every aspect of the game for me. So I think Schalke played really good, but Fnatic, they can't really do much.
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaways from this series for me were Fnatic's drafts were a bit shaky. You saw it in the first 2 games. And then finally on this 3rd game when they got a draft, which I think was well-rounded, Whipper was on a carry, they were winning topside. It fell apart in the bot lane dive. It fell apart in the overextension in teamfights. And props to Schalke, right? They played well in the early game. They punished the mistakes from Fnatic. So they did what they could, give them to what Fnatic was throwing at them. They responded well. They punished them. They got heralds. They kept getting mid-tower early game. And then they just snowballed through side lane so well. And I think Schalke's drafts were better. Their gameplay was just better on paper, and they were the better team on the day.
Definitely were. That is a disappointing finish then to Fnatic, their first season without Reckless. And yet it sucks to always say it's their first season without Reckless or whatnot, but that is the story of the team. However, these 5 players just couldn't make it work now in the playoffs. And what is so interesting about that is for any other team that made such fundamental changes with such pivotal players, you know, changing out in the lineup, you would say it's great. You had a successful first season. You got into the playoffs. You fell against a stronger team on the day, but it's just not the case for an org like Fnatic.
Yeah, it's crazy to see, you know. You think of Fnatic, you think of top 2, you think of top 3, but now they're going to finish in 5th place. Schalke are the ones who are now stapled top 4 in the regular season, top 4 in playoffs. And yeah, if you're Fnatic, obviously if you took away the actual team logo and you're like, oh, you finished 5th place, that's pretty good. But for Fnatic, that's just a disappointment.
That isn't. So we'll see what happens in summer, but it does mean that Schalke move on to face Rogue while Fnatic are eliminated. And the winner of today's series will be our first team in the LEC Spring Final. The other will face the winner of Rogue versus Schalke. So then let's have a little preview of Rogue versus Schalke. Zanzarah, how much are you on the Schalke hype train after what you saw yesterday?
I'm fully on Schalke hype train. I think Rogue versus on their series versus Mad Lions didn't really show their best, so I think Schalke can take it. But I actually believe in Rogue. I think it should be super close. I think it's gonna be 3-2, but actually I would put my vote on Schalke.
Yeah, I think this series is going to be so interesting. You saw Fnatic had a bad day. G2 were trolling a bit against Schalke. Schalke did do well against these teams, but Rogue is another top dog in Europe. And I think that the reason they lost to Mad Lions, what I said on Euphoria, there was a lot of miscommunication, over-communication. I don't know if it was the stage pressure, but Rogue was communicating way too much, so they never really had a clear plan in mind. So everything was all over the place. They weren't covering, they weren't grouping properly. But we'll have to see how Rogue does against Schalke on Sunday.
Yeah, that is interesting. Like, too much communication because you're hyped being back on stage. That can happen. Odawamne, of course, versus his ex-team. Gilius said, I want to take him down.
Oh, boy.
We'll see tomorrow. But there is a high chance that we're watching the LEC representatives for MSI on stage today. And one of their biggest competitors will be the LCK, region of the current world champions. Here's Laure with our international check-in.
And thank you, Sjokz. Mid-season Invitational 2021 will head to Iceland this year. And last time we saw SKT there, they lost against G2 3-1 in dramatic fashion. I mean, if you're an LCK fan, of course, when you think about the pedigree and history for this team, it is fair to say that they had a massive decline, internationally at least. However, domestically, T1 kept performing through the multiple lineup changes since the last time we saw them out world 2 years ago. They 6-0'd Daimon in 2019. They 3-0'd Genji in spring 2020. only to fall against the eventual world champion Damwon in summer, missing out on Worlds after a crushing defeat to Genji in the regional qualifier. 2021 could be the year T1 returns to the international stage as they fight to build on their already astonishing legacy from the past. Now, the lineup changed, but the core of the team stayed the same, with FLICKR in the mid lane and deep in fans' hearts. This 2021 season has been difficult for the community, as they got 2018 vibes, with FLICKR spending a lot of time on the bench this spring. We understood from a very informative interview Ashley had with Danny, T1's coach, that the triple world champion was not satisfied with his level of play. T1 got to experiment with their 10-man roster for a few weeks before coming back to what looks to be the strongest form in this 2021 lineup. Kana, Kuz, FLICKR, Teddy and Keria are now on a 5-series win streak and only lost 1 game to AFS. Now, the Demon King may not look unkillable anymore, but he's still a cornerstone in the T1 house and the key element in T1's dynamic. This version of T1 looks promising because over the past 2 years, Africa and Genji have been T1's Achilles heel during pivotal series. When you look at the LCK brackets, T1 defeated DRX a couple days ago. They will have to face Genji in the next stage tomorrow. And if they succeed, we'll have the T1 versus Damwon Kia finals we're dreaming of. Both these teams went Freaky Friday with their coaching staff, and it would be a mastermind game and banger series for sure. Now, if you ask me, can T1 make it to finals? I'd say yes, they have a strong laners, they have one of the best bot lanes in the world, but could they win against our world champions Damwon? I think a convincing win against Genji tomorrow will at least tip the scale in their direction. But Sjokz, back to you.
Thank you so much for that catch-up. It's always difficult to keep track of everything, but we know that you watch all the LCK series religiously. And for fans of League of Legends all around, it's always great to see SKT T1 now with then FLICKR in the mid lane at an international tournament, but it might not happen.
They're such stapled names with so much dominance over so many years, right? FLICKR, T1. Having them in an international event is always scary, regardless of how good they're looking. At an international event for any Western team or even LPL team, it's a scary team to face.
It definitely is. We'll see what happens there. But now let's turn our attention back to the LEC and the jungle. Jungle is and always has been a key role in the LEC playoffs and in League as a whole. So let's discuss the state of the jungle with Zanzarah and Caedrel. But
oh, look at that.
Look at that.
Oh, we're so cute together.
That's great. So I hope that the good photo also makes for some good analysis. Let's start off, Zanzarah, with the build. What do the junglers have to build these days? And is there a lot of variety?
Yeah, kind of right now for jungle, there is, you just take Lucidity boots, you take Chimp Tank, and jungle meta. 90% of the times you just buy boots, buy Chimp Tank, and just run on enemy, just kill them everywhere. This is why we see a lot of Hecarim, Volibear, Udyr. Actually, there is Lilia. She doesn't buy Chimp Tank, but she just doesn't need it. She's too broken without it.
Yeah.
So yeah, not really interesting meta, but it is what it is.
Yeah, Lilia has her passive right, and she has the Predator, so the move speed as well. But most of the junglers, barring Nidalee, I'd say, and the LEC we saw from Selfmade yesterday, are speedy. You've got Olaf as well with Ghost, Udyr's flashing, with Nimbus Cloak, with Celerity, Water Walking, Blue Smite. There's much more movement speed tools than just the items there. But the whole reason that they have these items is because of the Gale Force meta, and also the flash spells on the AD carries. They can get back really safely, and they can dash away. But if you have so much move speed, it doesn't matter how far away you dash, because I'm just going to chase you down, and that's basically what the jungle champs do these days, to engage the fights.
Exactly, and that's why we're seeing such high action games also from the start of the game. So of course, ganking quickly, very good. Second thing you do need to do is help your laners as well. Yeah,
definitely. You don't want to fight too many people 1v1, 1v2, especially when you're a jungler with Boots first item. Lucidity Boots is the #1 first item in the game. So looking at a clip here from week 4, day 1 of Fnatic against SK, I believe, what Selfmade does here is he pushes out the wave with his team because he doesn't want to risk them getting ganked. Not only that, but he doesn't want to walk into River against the Grabbz and 1v1 him because he has Boots as his first item. So what he does, he goes into the lane, pushes it out with them, and then his bot lane comes with him to what is his objective, the neutral objective. Let's get the dragon going, and that's how jungle role is and always has been. It's almost like a I hold your hand, you hold mine, let's go together, let's not get caught out. Barring the jungle meta of like Kha'Zix, Xin Zhao, Kindred, which we saw a couple of seasons ago, like season 7. That's basically what the jungle meta is right now. It's speed, it's engage, and it's teamwork.
I kind of like it. I mean, Zanzarah, I know that you're a big fan of the tanks in the jungle as well, but in terms of how you can influence a game, where would you say this jungle meta ranks?
Yeah, I think the meta starts shifting more towards more like ganking jungler. I think with the past year we were on fully on a hard farming junglers. Lille Niederle was dominating the Rift, but right now there is Hecarim Udyr who can farm pretty good and gank. So. But I think the problem is because the last year meta was farm, people like, oh, jungle gonna full clear, I can do whatever I want. So right now, people like Gilius, they know what to do, they just come and gank you. And I think this is the right thing to do.
Yeah, we'll see what Jankos and Elioya decide to do with the meta today. So let's turn our attention then towards today's action as G2 Esports and Mad Lions battle for a spot in the LEC final.
One last sally into the breach as Neon gets culled to half his HP. One attacks tower for a year, the charm comes out and is all on limit. He's already dead before he can even join the fray. No flash burn, no Magna Storm, shut down. Schalke held a reverse sweep in their hands, but G2 shut the damn door in their face. G2 will go through to the upper bracket.
It wasn't the clearest series, at least that makes me confident that I can't play much worse than I did today. Against Mad Lions, I don't really feel threatened because I feel like they're worse than last year. I just don't see how we can lose, honestly.
Well, Mad in the past used to be very easy to prepare against. They basically did the same every game. Right now, I think they are more creative in the draft, at least.
Dashes forward once again. Cyclone is a few seconds away. Here comes Elioya bringing the thunder. Oh, Shockwave comes out. Humanoid takes him out to the solo kill. But in the back fight, now Hunt Summer's running for his life. Mad Lions have destroyed Rogue where they stand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Facing G2, I mean, I feel, of course, excited about it, but I will not think like it will be much difference between Rogue, because I think Rogue was really strong this year also. So we have good chance against G2.
I think last year we only won because kind of trolling and not taking it seriously. But this year, I think we can win even if they play seriously.
Well, Mad Lions taking down the #2 in Rogue last week, and today they have their eyes set on the #1. And this rivalry was brought to life, of course, last year when the Mad Lions were able to beat G2 in a best-of-5, and in summer also again in a best-of-1. So we have high hopes for what this series could bring, because this is a new lineup. Zanzarah, what were your impressions of this revamped Mad Lions lineup so far this season?
I think Mad Lions, I mean, if we talk about progress throughout the split, I think Mad Lions for sure the best team. I think they were playing better and better week by week, and right now we see pretty solid team who can fight even for top 1, in my opinion. And yeah, I think Mad Lions is super strong right now.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, you had a lot of questions coming into this year with this topside jungle changes that Mad Lions went through, because last year, if you look at Shadow and Aroma, they were such a big part of Mad Lions, especially in their win against G2 in that best-of-5 in spring. Shadow was 16 kills on Olaf. The series had everything, right? Ziggs trying to backdoor. It was the whole shebang. But now this Mad Lions revamped roster, their coaching staff put a lot of faith in these new players. Armut, obviously, from the World Championship. Aroma faced up against him. And this team, to me, is just so cohesive in the way that they approach the games, because even against Rogue in the best-of-1s, they're winning, and all of a sudden they get caught out by 5-man Shockwave, and then they lose the game with Ocean Soul. But then alternatively, they were winning the game in the first place, and then when they face Rogue in the best-of-5, Rogue are the ones with Infernal Soul with a 6-7k gold lead, and they're the ones who come back.
They have different ways of approaching the game. Also, it would be the first time they make it to the finals for G2, who also had that big change with now Reckless in their team. It would be the 5th time that they make it to the finals. So that's just a big thing to fight up against. But the key might lay in the drafts, as it does so often. Zanzarah, talk to me about the approach of Mad being this triple threat composition.
Yeah, I think Mad Lions always have a lot of tools to get lead in early game, especially, and they have a really good mechanical players. So they have Armut, who always gets in lead, actually, or equal, and they're always picking good champs for him. Aatrox, Urgot, Wukong, and I think we just saw what Mad Lions can do with that. Even with the gold deficit versus Rogue, they managed to find a good place and come back.
Yeah, and I think there's just like these differences between what we would argue the top 3 teams coming into the playoffs, which was Fnatic, ironically, G2 and Rogue, who are playing like these tank tops, blind pick Scions, all these kind of things with Graggaz and stuff, whereas Mad Lions and teams like Schalke are playing these counter pick tops, split pushers. We've got Darius, we've got Urgot, Wukong, Aatrox, all these things which I think are coming together so nicely to see. And the reason that a triple threat comp is somewhat stronger, in my opinion, than a double threat composition with a tank top is, first of all, you get a counter pick top, so you have a winning matchup for that counter pick top. And second of all, in team fights, you have so much more things to look out for, especially if you're only having 2 carries. If you shut down their mid, you shut down their bot lane, and with these engaged junglers we talked about, then you're definitely going to struggle, especially if Armut's on that team, right? You take down Humanoid, you take down Karzi, but Armut's alive on the Wukong and he's flanking you, or he manages to get an Urgot ult and get a reset. It's really deadly, especially in this kind of bruiser meta where it's so hard to kill these frontline carries that the top lane is kind of presenting.
That's a great point. Armut has integrated into this team very, very well and has shown that he can be that carry. And I mean, there's such a big emphasis on the top lane nowadays. You know, we had 2 pentakills in the last couple of weeks for top lane, or something that almost never happens.
Darius, yeah.
If that only proves how much agency they have. So the question then is, what are we going to see from G2? Because we've seen in the playoffs now 2 threat comps, and more often than not, Zanzarah, they've put Wonder on that Scion pick. Do we want to see something different today?
Yeah, of course. I want to see Pyke top lane, something like that. Stop picking tanks for Wonder, please. G2 was good when they was playing the same playstyle as Mad Lions, triple threat comp. This is why if we gank Wonder, they get the lead on mid lane and on bot lane. This is what G2 is supposed to do. And I think if they can change their playstyle and just match Mad Lions on their comfort zone, I think they can beat them easily.
Yeah, and I think the way that G2 was in this specified, the blind pick Scions were working, but then it started to fall apart as Schalke adapted in the series. And when it came to the game 5, the only real carry they had left was Caps, right? You had Reckless on Seraphine, again, Wunder on a tank, and then it was all on Caps. And I feel like this roster is just so star-studded across the board that Wunder can play carries. We've seen things like the Quinn and the Lucian to list the top, all these things, the Shy-esque. And you've got Caps and Reckless, who are arguably the best 2 carries in Europe right now, especially considering their World's Finals appearances alongside the titles that they have. I really feel like playing more aggressive, more split push-esque top laners just gives G2 more map control, and it just puts Wunder in a better situation going into the game.
And it feels like it's just a matter of time until they go back to that, right? And we know that usually G2 gears up for the playoffs and shows more as the playoffs go, but I feel like they've been pushed around by Schalke, so today we have to see that peak G2.
Oh yeah, they were pushed around a little bit, but they were also trolling a bit. They were 2-0 up, they skipped the ban, they kept blind picking Scion, they were drifting around the rift. It was like I was watching Tokyo Drift #2.
I can see the threads already.
Yeah, it was crazy. So yeah, we'll have to see how they approach this best of 5. I think this best of 5, we'll see another form of G2. I think we'll see a much more serious G2. And I think this is where I think we'll see the real version of G2.
Yeah, and one of the things that is a character of G2 and has been forever, and we've seen throughout the regular season, was G2 being a behemoth in the early game. And Caedrel, you look a closer look at how their lanes and jungler work together.
Today, we're going to go over some of the small details of G2's early game, looking at how their laners and jungler constantly interact to help each other out to make sure neither of them fall behind. Before going into game though, it's important to note one main thing about the draft. Caps blind picked Yone, which was responded by the LeBlanc pick from blue. This matchup is rough for Yone in the early game, as he gets pushed in and he can get poked out, so helping him get to the lane is really crucial. The game begins with a fairly standard line of scrimmage. Jankos moves in toward the enemy Raptors to get information on Hecarim's pathing, but the ward is swept away and the ward kill is given to blue, who will now have enough experience to hit level 2 on the first midwave, further giving him the advantage in this matchup. Either way, G2 knows that Hecarim is pathing top to bot as Scion leashed for him, evidenced by the mana spent and the late arrival to the lane. With both junglers clearing top to bot, the bot side scuttle would likely be the first big point of contention. At level 1, SK's bot lane decide to push the wave, using Kai's Sacathia and Rain to nuke it. G2 let the wave come into them and hold it just outside of tower range. As the second wave comes in, SK push it in once again, and Reckless tanks the wave just like he did before outside of the turret's range while Mickey X attempts to clear the ward in the river. In the meantime, Blue, who has lane priority in mid, spots Jankos at his Raptors with a ward, so SK know the G2 jungler is pathing from top to bot as well. G2 are holding minions close to their turret as it allows them to look for 2 different options. The first option is to potentially set up a gank as SK needs to overextend to hit the enemy minion wave. But with Jankos being spotted and with G2 being unable to clear SK's vision, this is much harder to execute. Instead, G2's goal is to get the wave to bounce and push out, because the minions are meeting close to their side. G2's next wave will arrive and reinforce the previous wave before SK's, giving them a temporary minion advantage. Right here, G2 have 9 minions to SK's 6, just as Jankos is finishing his Krugs. They push out the lane and gain priority just as the scuttle spawns, and the ability to move out of the lane first allows them to help Jankos secure it. After securing the scuttle crab, Jankos spots Tinks moving into mid lane and follows him in. G2 are in a good position for this 2v2 as Hecarim has already used his E earlier and doesn't have it for the fight. G2 trade onto LeBlanc and chunk her out. After the trade, while Tinks leaves lane, Jankos stays and helps Caps push out. Seeing the state of the top lane wave, Tinks sees a window to gank, giving SK first blood. However, Caps TPs in and helps Jankos kill Jenax for a 1-for-1 trade. LeBlanc has TP, so why doesn't she join the fight? Well, earlier on, Jankos helped Caps push out the wave, which left LeBlanc under her turret with a big wave to farm. Teleporting in to join this fight poses so many risks, as you can come out empty-handed without any kills, while also losing all the creeps in mid. In the aftermath of the top lane trade, and despite being almost dead, Jankos is able to force Tinks off the top scuttle as well. Why? Because Jankos still has smite and he has red buff, so he can force the 1v1, meaning Tinks has to back off. How did this happen? After their jungler grabbed the bot side scuttle, G2's bot lane went back to the lane and kept pushing it. With level 3, Xayah now has more tools to push in the wave as she has access to all her spells. After pushing out the wave, they quickly recall and Mickey runs straight to mid lane. Jezu wants to match Reckless's recall here as well, but in order to do this, Treats has to hold the wave for him, which delays the SK support from recalling and being out on the map like Mickey. With Hecarim out of the picture, Mickey X does 2 more things to help out his mid laner. He holds the wave to make sure the minions aren't lost to the tower, and then also cancels LeBlanc's base. With the wave pushing in and looking at potentially losing over a wave of experience, LeBlanc is immediately forced to teleport back to the lane, and SK lose their TP advantage. In a normal situation, SK would likely prefer to conserve it to use it later on. While G2 didn't get a significant gold lead from this, they were able to secure the double scuttle crab for Jankos and keep Caps in a good position in a tough early game matchup.
What an incredible segment I was seeing. It's like Caedrel sees the Matrix and some of us don't, but it just goes to show that a strong early game doesn't always necessarily mean that you're getting a ton of kills here and there, but it's about all those subtle moves you make on the map. And we know that G2 is incredibly good at that, but Mad are no slouches in the early game either. Zanzarah, how do you think Mad Lions are going to match up versus G2 specifically in the early game today?
To be honest, for me, Mad Lions seems actually even stronger than G2, and I think G2 gonna be the one who's trying to keep up with the early game. But I think the both teams showing insane performance, and both teams know pretty clear how to get a lead in early game. So I think early game gonna decide a lot. I think both teams are smart enough to use their lead properly. So if they get 2-3k gold lead in minute 15, game could be decided just on that one.
Yeah, and if you look behind us, look at the stats, right? You've got Mad Lions #1 Herald team, and you've got G2 #2 Herald team. And I think Herald, as you saw in the Schalke series yesterday, unlocking mid tower, unlocking the early game, gets you such a natural advantage just from the map state alone, because you can push your way deeper. So I think that there's going to be a lot of contesting around there.
Zanzarah's giggling, why?
No, I agree. Yes, everything good. I agree.
Yeah, I thought we were going to burst into a discussion about Herald value with the LS in our background, but that's not the case. So today G2 can make their 5th final in a row. So let's get some insight from their coach.
And thank you, Sjokz and Grabbz. Thank you for joining me ahead of your game. How was this week for you and for the team after last week's fiesta, let's say?
Yeah, lots to work on. I think it was really clear we didn't play the cleanest League of Legends, and we were very conscious about our team fighting is not the best, especially compared to like other international top teams. So we kept working on that, and hopefully today we can show a better performance.
Something I wanted to point out actually, because your early games are usually so clean, you're so dominant in this situation. What happened in the later stages of the game? Have you been able to analyze what happens?
It's basically just how we approach fights. I think traditionally we're a team that's very aggressive, and we have champs usually that can play make on their own. But in this team fight meta, you want to like get one pick, reset, and then make them come to you. But especially this part of making them come to us, I think we don't get quite. Or like people like Mickey and Caps to see it under play, they'll go for it, and then usually their carry can hit for free, and then the fights are bad. And I think just us being a bit more disciplined is very important. And hopefully again today, we're not going to have these clown games.
Discipline, of course, but also your read on the meta. I want to say, because G2 in the best form we knew from the team used to be so good at these team fighting situations. And when you look at the meta right now, a lot of front to back, a lot of tanks, engaged support, still control mages on the mid lane. What's your read on this situation when it comes to the other teams in playoffs and the way G2 is playing them right now?
Yeah, I think we never actually have been that good at front to back team fighting. I think we always were good at finding picks and then going from there. Looking at other regions especially, they also pick champs like Silas or Kali or something like this. I think that could be good for us in the future. But for now, I think it's really important for us to get the basics down, because if the meta stays the same for MSI, we play in the current way, then I think it's going to be a bit rough against the good teams there. So we take it as a learning chance, and we take it day by day. We're not very confident yet, 100%, but we're getting there.
Okay, well, now focusing on Mad Lions, the matchup today. We saw them in an explosive series last week. A lot of strong laners, Alioya popping off. What's your take on this team right now and their success through the playoffs?
Yeah, I think it depends a lot on the jungler. I think especially in this tank meta where they want to gank early. Same for us, right? If you get ahead early game, it's easier to close out. And if they have picks like Volibear and then throw in a TF, for example, who can snowball the game, they're a good team at doing that, but I also think they're very structured, very coached team, which also means, though, they're not really good at surprising us. So I believe if we can match the early game pressure, especially on Jankos and Alioya, then we should come ahead.
Yeah, I was about to ask, a player to look out for in this matchup is going to be the jungle, you think?
Yeah, I just think every time there's a jungle meta, like right now, where Cam Tank is really strong and Gank junglers are really strong, the jungler is the most important player in the early game. And if we for once don't int in the early game, I think we're going to have a good chance. But knowing my teammates and my players, I think at a certain point we're going to die, and Jankos is going to be behind, and that's going to be interesting.
All right, you still have the venture at least, so I hope it goes right for you guys today. But thank you, Grabbz, for the interview. Good luck against Mad Lions. And back to you, Sjokz.
Thank you very much, Laure. Wow, spilling the beans there a little bit, Grabbz, and also giving the respect to Alioya, as we have done also this season, because this guy has had an incredible split so far. The next superstar coming out of Spain, a lot of people are saying this should be the rookie of the split. Zanzarah, do you think he should be, and why?
Yeah, to be honest, I think he deserves it fully. I think he performed really well, and this is his first split. And then I see this is big stage, and I think there is a lot of pressure for him after the Shadow performance last year. So I think he managed to step up, and I think right now he's even playing better than Shadow, and Mad Lions seems super strong with him.
Yeah, and if you look at the stats, I mean, he has the highest jungle proximity while also having the highest CS differential. So he's farming while also being around his laners. So he's such an efficient jungler, and I just really love his mindset coming into it. You know, Alioya talks about how he's his biggest self-critic and that he doesn't really care about anyone else's opinion other than his own. And he just criticizes himself. He wants to be the best version of himself, and he's so hardworking. And I think that you look at Mad Lions, and yes, they kind of took a risk on Alioya, right? You look at his performance last year. Yes, they won the LVP. But going into EU Masters, they didn't even get out of group stage. And in the Iberian Cup, they came almost last place. So there wasn't really much to go off of oh, he didn't win EU Masters, he didn't come second. But I think the risk has paid off, right? He's looking like one of the best junglers in Europe right now, and definitely my rookie of the split.
Yeah, and what I think is really cool, as he is giving us a sultry look in the camera there, Armut, is that Armut and Alioya came into this team and were the big ticket pickups, which we didn't necessarily know of how they were going to perform. But it shows that the scouting and the back end of the Mad Lions is on point, because they selected two players that have us even not talking about their superstars anymore in Humanoid, Carzzy and Kaiser, which is a big feat.
It's crazy, yeah. They were the superstars from last year. Shadow obviously having pop-offs on Lee Sin and Olaf against G2, but these two have stepped up, and wow, the scouting must have been really good. Armut, obviously at World Championship, a lot easier to look at, but when you look at a jungler like Shadow, who was performing so well apart from the summer playoffs and Worlds, second place in the regular season in summer, popping off in the series against G2, and then just bringing in Alioya. That's just really impressive scouting from the coaching staff for sure.
That it is, but now the coaching staff and the team will have to put their best foot forward as they're up versus G2, trying to keep them from their 5th final. Caedrel, what are your predictions for today?
As much as we've hyped Mad Lions, I really think G2 are going to turn it on this series. I think it's going to be a 3-1 to G2. I think that G2, although they did struggle a little bit against Schalke, I think that there was a lot of trolling going on, I must say, and I want to see the real version of G2. I want to see Wunder on a carry, and I think they should be able to take the series.
Okay, our analysts haven't had the best track record so far.
we're always.
Zanzarah, what do you think?
I was almost right before, so I think right now I will flip it again. 3-1 Mad Lions. I think it's time for Rookie to show where is home for Grand Pass.
Okay.
Let's go, Mad Lions.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. Let's see what Discord did. Usually they vote for the fan favorite, so a 3-0 there for G2. We'll see what happens. Incredibly big matchup, and the winner of this series will be our first team in the LEC Spring Final as G2 and Mad Lions face off in the upper bracket.